Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Joey here at the MCDC podcast, and I'm sorry we haven't recorded in a few weeks here. We kind of skipped it. I'm just getting back from a convention and working the convention, actually, and I promised you guys that I was going to record with Bill Beer from the Too Old, Too New podcast, and we did do that, but we had to scrap the recording because there were some technical difficulties, and we had to scrap it because it was just too corrupted. And then I promised you guys that I was going to have him on this week, but unfortunately last night he got into a small accident and he cannot record today, and he's actually doing fine. He's doing great. So I think he said he may just have a dislocated shoulder or possibly even a torn rotator cuff. But he's doing okay, maybe in a little pain. But let's hope that he gets better and he gets well here, so he can we can talk with him a little bit more here within the next coming weeks here. But today we're gonna do some really cool books. It's the week of number ones. I'm gonna do my books. I did not get to read his books in detail, so we're just gonna save those possibly till the next time that we talk to him. So my books this week is the Brian Michael Bendis book, and it is Man of Steel number 1, and we've got Lando number 1 for you guys. So stay tuned, listen to these reviews, and we will get on it. Ezekiel, what do we say, son?
Get ready for another episode of MCDC Comics.
All right, let's roll that music.
MCDC. Ready for some pop culture and comic? Yeah!
Are you ready for some comic books indeed? Let's open up our first issue, which is Man of Steel number 1 by Bendis, Reese, Prado, and Sinclair. So, upon the first looks of this book, it's actually very good looking to the eyes. The artwork is really great. I do like the colors. And the script was actually really well written, too. There was just a couple of places where I got hung up myself. And my thing is, if I get hung up on some things and it doesn't really flow that well, then I can't really give this book a 10. And a lot of the books that I read nowadays, there is always something, or at least one thing, that drops my score down at least one notch. So this one actually is going to be kind of a high rating. I am not going to give it a 10 because a 10 is something that is perfect and does not need to be fixed or edited or anything like that. There's nothing completely wrong with it. And guess what, guys? We're human. We are not perfect. So this is not going to be a 10. But it is definitely going to come very close. So I will give you guys my rating at the end of it. But this is a really good book, and I am very hopeful for where this is going. And I am excited that we've got Brian Michael Bendis on these books, and I hope his writing is going to be better than some of our other books. Batman. All right, so we open up the book with Rogol Zar, I believe his name is. I am probably going to be messing that up. No, it's Rogol Zar. I don't know. I'm really horrible at pronunciations, guys. Forgive me, but that's the way I'm going to say it. Rogol Zar. So anyway, he is talking to the Circle here, and he's kind of pleading with them and explaining to them that, Krypton is a virus and a plague, and he goes on and on and on. And he makes kind of a good point about how, and I'm not too sure. I mean, we all know about Krypton, and the way he portrays Krypton is as if they are these most horrible people who are trying to take over other planets and their resources just for their own gain. And I'm sure that this is what he sees them as, because he sees them that this is what they did to his planet and what they're doing to his planet. And he's pleading with the Circle and asking them, we can't start a war. We can't, just take them out. We just need to cleanse them and kill them all, kind of thing. and he's this creepy looking guy. And this actually, I do want to say, this picture where this artwork where we open up and it's the title page and we got all the names of who's on this and all this stuff. And Rogolzar is actually, this is a really well drawn page here, and the color makes it even better. But he looks very crazy and creepy, and I'm just like, yeah, this dude is nuts. So he's holding this really awesome double axe, and he's just very angry and pleading to them, Krypton must be cleansed, every single one of them, kind of thing. And this is what we get from him. And then we flip the page, and we're in Metropolis, and that was many years ago, and Krypton was still around, kind of a thing, right? So now we're back on Metropolis, and we see Firefly and Killer Moth talking to each other, and Killer Moth has got Firefly there at gunpoint, or whatever his contraption is. Anyway, they're talking about, I'm sure it's the fire or whatever. They both got fire suits, and anyway, so they're kind of talking about how he's like, you owe me some money, you got to do this. I where's the money at, kind of a thing. He's like, dude, Killer Moth, chill. He's gonna hear you, kind of a thing. And they're you get this feeling that they're talking about Superman, and they're in Metropolis. He's like, hey, I'm not scared to be here. This is not. And he's like, I did my research. He's somewhere in Tanzania or something like that. And he's like, dude, just chill. Like, he listens for people saying, where's the money, and give me your money, kind of a thing. And he's just gonna show up. And Firefly tells Killer Moth, I know what's going on. I heard that you're pulling his trigger. So we get the idea that there's somebody else here, and there's a big boss here somewhere. They do not mention it in this book, but there's a big boss that Killer Moth is his guy. His go-to guy, that he's pulling all of his triggers. So, and we get the feeling that Firefly is hiding in Metropolis because he says, everybody's scared to come here, and I figured that this is a good place to hide out. And next, we flip the page, and after they talk about, oh, he's going to come for us, he listens for these kinds of phrases, and you see Superman. And I thought this was actually kind of cool. There's one panel here at the very bottom, and I didn't see this and notice it until I read it like 3 or 4 or 5 times. There's actually this really big blur, and it's red, blue, and yellow, and you get the idea that is Superman swooping in there and grabbing these guys, because then you flip the page next, and Superman has got both of these guys by the collar, and he's flying out of there, and these guys are like, oh, no, don't drop us, don't drop us. He's like, I don't do that, and Firefly says, Batman does it all the time. He's like, yeah, I know, but it's funny when he does it. So we get a little bit of humor here from Superman, and he's kind of sick and twisted a little bit, because he's like, yeah, it's kind of funny when he does that, but I don't do that. So I don't know. But that's kind of cool. That was one thing that was the first thing that I got hung up on. I was like, well, would Superman do that? And would he kind of laugh about it? Maybe he would. I don't know. This Superman does. So, he's like, for professional courtesy, you guys don't have to answer or talk to me. And he's like, yeah, good plan, kind of thing. So anyway, and he asks him, I thought you guys were too scared. I thought people were scared to come here because of me, kind of thing. And that's when they explain to him, I think that's why it was a good idea to come and hide out here, because everybody is scared of you, and this kind of thing. So he goes and drops him off, I assume, at the police station, right? And then we see him, and he's doing his thing. He's closing his eyes. He's high up in the air, and he's trying to listen for anything that's wrong, somebody who can save, right? And I kind of like this, because he's kind of thinking to himself, and it gives you an insight of how Superman works. I'm going to read this page to you guys, because this is just a really great page here. We get some word bubbles here, and I guess they're Superman, and he's thinking to himself. He said, there's a young woman, I'd say 2 miles away. She's playing her best friend a song she's been working on. It's a cover. I've heard the song before, but I can't place it. And he's got a few, he's singing the tune in his head. He says, her voice cracks in all the right spots, as if there was no other possible way for those words to come out. It's just about the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. What is this song? I don't mean to eavesdrop. I'm even a little embarrassed that I did. I heard a scream her way, and I was trying to pinpoint where the scream came from, which is not as easy as you think. There are 3.2 million people in Metropolis, and a lot of them like to scream for a lot of different reasons. Instead, I heard this song. What is this song? Now I hear the scream, all of them. And then, for the first time in a long time, we see that Superman uses a cuss word. So anyway, now we see that the screams that he heard was a building on fire. And I have to say, the colors on this page are awesome because the fire looks really cool, and it actually looks like it's on fire. The building's on fire. And, he's talking to himself, and he thinks that it could be an electrical problem. He says that there's been a lot of fires in Metropolis lately, and, it couldn't be a coincidence kind of a thing, because he's like, maybe it is a coincidence. Maybe it's just that this city's so old that there's so many different electrical problems, and, this could be kind of a thing. He's kind of talking himself into believing that this is not, arson, I guess. And you got a firefighter screaming, Superman, 7th floor. And he's like, I got it. I see it. Everyone back up, and he says, as always, my mother says, fire is fire. And he goes and he's searching through the buildings, and he sees a little girl. And, I think Brian Michael Bendis is kind of obsessed with people cussing here because we see Superman, and he sees a little girl hiding under a desk of some sort or a table. And she says, holy, and then you guys can think, I'll leave that to your imagination of what you believe she says. But there are some asterisks. Sorry, I can't speak. There are some asterisks and, words, 4-letter words being used by this little girl. And he says, language, please. And she's, oh, sorry. He picks her up. And he heads out, and he thinks to himself again, I could get out of here faster than the fire could chase us, but if I fly too fast, I could hurt them. So this gives you the idea that Superman is always thinking about these things, and he's always kind of maybe a little distracted, but he's still trying to focus on everything. I love this idea of, giving us this a little bit more depth to Superman and how he thinks. And he grabs up the little girl, and he wraps her in his cape, and he says, stay close. And this little girl uses a 4-letter word again, and he says, fire is fire. And he takes the little girl to her mom and dad, and one of the firefighters asks him, hey, I hate to bother you, but is there anything that you could do, Superman? And he says, happy to. And he does this really cool thing with his breath, and he kind of breathes in the fire, and he brings the fire onto himself. But this is one of those moments where it kind of the dialogue kind of there was a hiccup here in this moment, and only if you knew what this word means that this makes sense. And I'm going to read it to you guys again. He says, staccato inhales of super breath should pull most of the fire and smoke away from the building and onto me. So this is that moment. If you don't know what staccato means, then this kind of gives you a little bit of a hiccup. And I thought, okay, Brian Michael Bendis is really good in his writing, because that is a perfect example of how he uses his breath here and how that little fire trick that he does. And that is a great way to explain it without too many words. I like that, and I like his writing. But if you don't know what that word means, then you might have to look it up, or you might have to ask somebody. But this is one of those hiccups that I was like, okay, I like that because it explains this, it describes this moment perfectly. But it is one of those big words that you're like, I gotta look this up in a comic book to figure out what this word means. But if that's that one thing that made me just with the dialogue that was small little thing, that one word, hey, I'm glad, because this is not a Batman Tom King Batman book where everything is a hiccup with the dialogue. So we move on, and he breathes all the fire into him, and everybody's saved. The fire is out, and you flip the page, and he's in the fire, and he's like, there's something up with this fire. This is not just a regular fire. There's something about this place. So he's looking around, and he's using his X-ray vision, and he's looking through the wiring, looking inside the walls, and you see some word bubbles here, and it says, Dad, what is that, Clark? And later on, we'll find out exactly what that is, and it's kind of give us like this insight of what's about to happen here. And I didn't get that until I thought it was kind of like a flashback, or I kind of thought it was like him thinking back to an instant. But now reading this about 5 times, it makes sense, because it's kind of giving us an insight of what's about to happen in this issue. So we see a fire chief come in here, and the person's like, it's arson, and he says, how can you tell? He says, there's just been too many fires in this part of the city, and it can't just be some random. And he's like, I'm sorry, have we met? And and the person takes off the helmet, and it's a woman, as she says, no, I just transferred from Coast City. Hi, I'm Deputy Fire Chief Melody Moore. And she says, thank you for your help tonight. Do you want a job? He says, thanks, but... And she cuts him off and says, you have a job. He says, I do have a couple. And he says, about there being too many fires, what do you think was behind this? Insurance? And she says, there's a lot to sift through. I'd hate to speak out of ignorance. So they kind of go back and forth, and there's some kind of flirty banter going on, because the way they talk here. There's one moment where she's like, am I taller than Wonder Woman? And he says, yes, actually. And she says, I knew it. So, and the looks and just the way about it, I think he does very well with, letting the reader know that there's some weird little flirtatious moment going on here. So I do like the idea that he did kind of write that very well and give us, because that's one of those things that's really hard to do when you're writing something and then you're doing the artwork and trying to portray. So it can be difficult for some people, but I think they did that really well. And I read some reviews and on Twitter and things, and people were like, hey, you're kind of stepping on thin ice here with that that fire chief here, Bendis. So because everybody doesn't want to think that Superman has feelings for another woman. They really want him to have feelings for Lois, right? But we do get this idea in this issue that there's some kind of problem going on between Clark and Lois, or at least because Lois is no longer with the Daily Planet. I'm not sure. There's something subtle there. We also read that in the prelude to this story. So I don't know. I hope we'll find out what's going on there. So we flip the page, and Rogolzar is back on this planet that he has all to himself, I believe, and he is fighting whatever creature is on this planet. And he's just, he says, this is this planet kind of, it keeps me fit in between wars. I fight these things, he likes doing this kind of thing, because we got Appa Ali Apsa showing up here and kind of giving him his answer to what he was pleading to earlier. And there's a lot of dialogue on this page. I'm not going to go through it all, but he basically says, Krypton has done nothing. They are not doing what you tried to explain to us. We looked in it, and they're going to live out their history the way accordingly. He says, we believe they will rise to the challenge of their new place in the galaxy and act according. Krypton will be left alone, and your answer is no. So And he's like, yeah, well, we thank you for your service, Rogolzar. And he just kind of gets really upset. He's like, no, kind of a thing. And so we see that this guy is not, going to get his answer. So what happens when somebody who really is passionate about something happening like this, and their answer is no, they try to take it into their own hands and handle it themselves. Now we go back to now, and we see that Superman is flying into the Daily Planet. There's nobody there, and then all of a sudden everybody shows up all at once, and we hear Mr. Perry White pull up. He's like, tell me you're sitting on gold, Kent. And he's like, well, I have some arson, Mr. White. Arson? I'm looking for blood-curdling citywide conspiracy, and you give me arson. And he's like, well, it's multiple counts. So, so he's like, I want something good. And he's like, well, Superman was there, according to reports. Hey, Jimmy, kind of a thing. And he's like, all right. So we get this idea that, Perry White wants something better than what Clark is giving him. And in the prelude to this one, we got that same idea where nothing that Clark Kent is doing right now is good enough for Perry White. So let's see where this goes, right? So we flip to the next page, and we see John Kent and Clark Kent here, and I went through a growth spurt, and he's not fitting into his little Superboy suit. And we see Lois Lane, and she's on the phone with the vice president, and he's, Clark's asking, did the vice president admit to his previously undisclosed financial stake in the Star Labs overseas operation? And she says he's about to, he just doesn't know it. So, and then we see a small panel here, and it says, Dad, what is that? Oh, Clark. And this is that insight that I was talking about, because that's the same words that were used a little bit ago. And then we flip the page, and we see an even more in-depth of this panel here. And we got Clark there. He's taking his glasses off. There's a big bright white light, and John looks very concerned, and Lois Lane looks really scared and concerned as well. And they said, Dad, what is that? Oh. And she says, Clark, ? And they're wondering, and they see that this white light, and it says to be continued next week in Man of Steel #2. So we don't know what this is. This is just a big bright light shining on him, and it looks like John is pretty scared, and Clark is taking his glasses off. Looks like he's about to jump into his Superman suit and go off. And Lois Lane's like, her face looks very concerned as well with what's going on. And Clark is the only one who looks like he has actually got his composure, and he's about to jump into the next thing and do his Superman thing. But in this moment, I felt like Lois had a very weird look on her face. It almost reminded me of was she noticing that this was an alternate version of Clark coming in and, trying to explain to them that something in the future was going to happen? Or was it just her kind of asking him, Clark, what are you going to do, kind of a thing? So that was one of those questions that made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. Was it an alternate version of Clark coming in with that white light, or what was it? So I really like this issue. Like I said, the only thing that was wrong with it was the flow of the dialogue, was the words that were used in some of the areas. And I think that brought my, I always start my books off at a 10, and when I read these, then I take points away as there's things that I don't like, or things that kind of get me hung up on, or the flow doesn't work very well. I think I'm going to give this one maybe a 7.5 to an 8. I think, I'm not going to go any higher than that. It's already high enough. I did think that this book was just a little wordy, but I guess that's a lot of people say that's what Brian Michael Bendis does. He's a little wordy in some of his books and things of that nature. But you know what? I did like this book. I did like the way everything was. It was really well written. It was, some people don't like it. I was listening to the guys over at the Weird Science DC podcast, and they are on the complete different side of things. I like this book, and obviously they do like it, but it's not such a high rating for them as it is for me. But I liked it. I liked the artwork. I liked the way they looked. The one thing that I just didn't like was that, why is Superman flirting with another woman? Yeah, there was one moment where we saw in a panel where he was smiling. He looked at the picture of Lois Lane and John, and he smiled, and then the next panel he kind of has a sad face going on. And there's another insight too. There might be something going on between him and Lois, and the spark is kind of fading, and him flirting with this Melody Moore. I guess that's another move where Brian Michael Bendis is kind of like hinting at something's going on between him and Lois. So, but anyway, other than that, I did like everything about this book. I like the look of the colors. I like the artwork. The writing was pretty good. The pacing wasn't too crazy, except for you got a little hung up on some of those big words and things of that nature. But all in all, it was an actually pretty good book. 7.5 to an 8. I'm teetering on that there. So I like the way he explained things. I liked how in depth he gave us Superman a little bit. He gave us insight in who he is. I do like this issue a whole lot, and this is gonna be a really high rating for us, guys. I don't think I've ever given anything above a 9. I could even go a 9.5, but I'm even scared to do that because it's just so scary to me that is this really almost a 10 kind of a thing. But I did get excited about this. I did like this book. I actually went out and bought the book. And, so it's in my collection because I did like it so much. So I'm excited for Brian Michael Bendis being on this story here. And I really hope that he gives us something better and he keeps going with these issues next week. So let's hope. I'm hopeful for this book. So that's going to be our Man of Steel book this week, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to our... All right, let's go ahead and break this one open. We've got Lando Double or Nothing #1, and we've got Rodney Barnes as the writer, Paolo Villanelli as the artist, and Andreas Massa as the colorist. And, I do want to say that nowadays, man, these colorists are just on point. They're doing really good with these things. I do like this issue. It does look really good and is very intriguing. The colors are awesome. The artwork is great, and it is not going to be a very high rating like my DC book was. It's going to be up there, but not as high as my DC book. So, but I do like this issue, and I am going to say, I am a horrible Star Wars fan, and I did not watch the Solo movie. I'm sure a lot of people will probably bad mouthing it and everything, but I'm one of those guys, and I've said this time and time again. I am a lover of cheese. I love cheesy movies. I love cheesy shows, and that's why I am not a critic for the movies or TV shows. That's why I just read comics and I talk about comics, and this is my thing, right? So anyway, I do like this issue. It does really good, and it actually does excite me a little bit. So this one is a really cool one. Let's go ahead and crack it open and talk about this book. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. My wife just walked in and informed me that it is National Donut Day, and sorry, I got to pause this, and we're going to go get some donuts. Son, are you excited? That is perfect because we're doing a Star Wars book. Come on, little Chewbacca. Let's go get some donuts. All right, guys, we are back from our adventure going to 2 or 3 different places for donuts. And actually, I kind of got a bone to pick. So we stopped by Krispy Kreme, and there was no purchase necessary. We definitely got free donuts, and it was actually kind of cool. We got to pick our donuts and all that good stuff, right? Then our second stop was Dunkin' Donuts, and they were not free. They wanted you to purchase a drink before you got your free donut. That, to me, guys, that's crazy. That's not free, right? That's with a purchase. There other places we went, there was no purchase necessary, and they just gave it to us for free. Dunkin' Donuts, don't shop for free donut day. All right, let's go ahead and get into our book here. We got Lando Double or Nothing, number 1. So at first you glance, the artwork was actually really great, and I do like the dialogue. And this kind of does portray Lando as kind of a arrogant, pompous know-it-all, and I do like his little droid there, L3. He's actually kind of cool. But all the droids in Star Wars are always really cool, right? So we open up the book, and he's kind of talking about how he wants to decorate the inside of the Millennium Falcon, right? He wants a festive atmosphere. He wants, these extravagant skin couches and a wet bar, and he wants game tables and things of that nature. So he's wanting to just create like a little casino atmosphere and in his ship. So, and then we flip the page, and we are now in Col Grun. And we follow a woman named Kitris, I guess, and she's like the head of some sort of rebel army where the stormtroopers are, taking control of their planet, and they are trying to fight back and take over control for themselves and for the people. And it looks like her father is kind of, undercover, and he let himself become a slave of something like that. And they're talking about getting more guns and more arms, but they need a smuggler who can get past the stormtroopers unannounced and get these guns and these weapons to them so that they can win this fight and swoop in before the more troopers come in and the Empire comes in and takes full control. So then we flip again, and now we're on Batruve, and we see Clarison here, and he is talking to somebody who is selling him some skins, and he's trying to talk him down, and he wants less for these hides and things like that. And now we see that Kitris is now here, and she was seeking him out, and she says, "Hey, so you're Clarison," and basically she says, "I heard of you. I know you're the best smuggler, and I need you to help us out." She explains to him what's going on and how they are trying to sneak in some guns for the rebels and to take over the stormtroopers and the Empire so that they can get their planet back or their home back. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't do that kind of thing. I just, he's just very arrogant and pompous." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not happening," kind of a thing. So she, he says, "My skill set costs a lot," and she's like, "I've got 1,000 credits up front, and when you get the weapons in there, I got another 500. And he's like, "All right, well, and if I say no, your friends over there are gonna, tune me up a little bit," kind of a thing. And she's like, "Yeah, no, they're loyal, and this is all about business." So he kind of, is intrigued a little bit because of the money, but then he doesn't really. He's not. He needs a little bit more persuasion, and she kind of says, "All right, well, let's just go get a drink or whatever." So they go, and they're talking at the bar, and they're it looks like they're having a good time here, and I'm sure she's just kind of schmoozing him a little bit so that she can get him to drunk, and I don't know what she's planning on here. But we got somebody coming in, and they notice who he is, and I guess he had swindled this guy in a card game before. And a fight kind of starts to happen, and her men take over and start to take this guy out. And she quickly grabs Lando and moves him out of there and says, "Come on, we got to get out of here." And so they start running and dipping out because people will start shooting at them. And, so now they are on the Millennium Falcon because she just goes with him. And now he's like, once she gives me the credits, we could use this to we can just dip out on her and just kind of like, go behind her back and take the money and just run, kind of a thing. So this kind of gives us an idea of what he's about and his personality. And his droid is the one who is the conscious one here. So, and he's kind of talking him out of it, and basically we've seen this kind of thing before. We, like in the Batman, the Gift or whatever. We got Skeets, and he was the one who was the one that kind of ran the things, right? And so we get the same kind of thing here with his droid, and the droid is the one that is smart, the one he's more level-headed, and this guy's just more for Lando's just out for pleasure and out for money and fun, and he just wants to live and smuggle things and just not have to help anybody. So now she's here. Now I guess he agreed to, smuggle the guns, and they're loading up his ship, and they're talking about these things and how they're going to get these things past the Empire, and all of a sudden you hear some alarms go off, and the Empire has found them out, and she is stuck on the ship with him. I believe she was not supposed to be on the ship with him, but now they have to leave the area very quickly, and they are trying to evade the Empire. And he does some pretty cool, tricky, maneuvers here. He tells L3 to go towards a cliff and drop when I say so. So he does that, and he does some pretty cool tricks, and he takes these fighter pilots out. And this he does very well. He's a pretty good pilot, and he does really good, in a crisis. So he does take these guys out. Now they are approaching Colgroon, and he says, can't give a guy a minute to celebrate himself. So, they are just like almost immediately they are there. And now he needs to go to the next and figure out how to smuggle these guns in and how to get them to the rebels down on Colgroon. And I'm sure we're going to find some pretty cool stuff in this next book. I really hope that it does a whole lot more with the action, and I hope it reels me in a little bit. I've said it time and time again that by number 1, you guys are setting something up. Number 2, you guys put the line out there, and you're kind of wriggling that worm on the line a little bit to catch me. Number 3, you have to actually get me on the line and bring me in a little bit. Let's hope that this is what they're gonna do with the number 2, because this one they did give us a little bit. They did give us that feeling of who he is in his character, and L3 is the level-headed one in this. So let's. I am hopeful for this one as well. So let's just keep going with this. I am excited to see what the next one gives us. So hopefully they throw that line out there and they hook me a little bit and bring me in. So I'm going to give this one, I'm going to say 7.5 to an 8. More leaning towards the, in-between mark. So it's good. The writing's all right. The artwork is great. The colors are awesome. So, that's going to be my review for the Marvel book. We got Lando Double or Nothing, number 1. And this is going to be our book for this week. And we'll see you guys next time. All right, next we're going to have comic book pop culture news and a little bit of more pop culture news. There are some pretty cool things in the news here that I wanted to talk about. First of all, let's talk about, we got that Rossanne reboot, right, guys? That now they are saying that they are canceling it because of Rosanne's racist tweets. I guess she went out and she talked down on one of Obama's one of his people on his campaign or whatever. I'm not too sure exactly. I gotta look it up. I read it over last night just once, but she had put out some racist tweets towards an African American woman that was on the Obama administration, and it was pretty horrible. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into it too much, but they are now pulling off her show. They're pulling off the all the syndication episodes, and they're done with that one. So that one is not out anymore. They were done with the first season, and they actually did renew it for a second season, but they now have canceled the contract because of these racist tweets. All right, that was our one pop culture news. So on to our comic book pop culture news. So it is reported that Jason Momoa and the director has left the film, and actually it looks like we've got Sony. They are walking away from the deal as well. So there is not going to be a Crow reboot anytime soon unless somebody else picks it up. So that's kind of sad. And that one was actually kind of cool. I did like that they picked Jason Momoa as the next Crow. I wonder, it says because of creative differences and financial differences, so I wonder if he was asking for more money and then he didn't like the direction of where they were going. So who knows what's going on with that one and where it's going to go from here. So that one kind of stinks. That one was actually kind of a cool thing. I was hoping to see that one. I'm sure my wife really liked to see a new Crow reboot too. What do you think, babe?
For what?
A Crow reboot.
Like the movie The Crow?
Yeah, there was going to be a Crow reboot, but it's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, because half the actors are either dead or missing.
No, it was going to be somebody completely brand new. It was Jason Momoa.
No, you can't do that. It's just, okay, so here's my geeky sci-fi thing. Charmed. You cannot bring back Charmed because, well, Rose McGowan's lost her mind, and Shannon Doherty, her hair's just barely growing back, and Alyssa Milano is like all activist, so you can't bring them back, right?
Okay.
But they're gonna like try to bring like a whole new story. Like they can't do that. When you end a story a certain way, you can't just like magically make that different. Look what happened to Roseanne.
Right. And I just talked about that a second ago. How, Roseanne had some crazy racist tweets, and now they pulled everything Roseanne off the air.
It's still on Wii.
until they take that off, because I'm sure who does Wii? Is that Oprah?
Yes.
She is not gonna let that fly, right? Especially when Roseanne had some racial tweets towards an African American woman. So, but yeah, my wife makes a great point. People who really like the shows that they are used to, and that's their shows, and they get, some people get upset about reboots. Some people get upset about because when they reboot, they change the whole entire thing. Now that I guess they're trying to reboot Charmed, and it's going to be something completely different, but there's going to be new girls and younger girls, and they're going to be in the old house. Come over here so we can hear you on the microphone. So, because she knows more about this one. So, this is actually pretty good, too, because this is pretty good. I guess this is comic book pop culture news, or if it's just pop culture news, let's throw in another one over here. Come on over here, talk to me about this.
Don't wrangle me in with the rest of you weirdos.
hey, I take offense to that. And we're not weirdos. We prefer geek and maybe eccentric. But
So, my best friend introduced me to Charmed, and I fell in love with it. Whatever, girl power, all that great, wonderful stuff. However, she just sent me the link for the new, whatever they call that, the
reboot?
the trailer or whatever for it. And I watched it. I got probably, 2 minutes into it, and I was like, this is ridiculous. This is completely different. Like, they're making it
it's not your Charmed, right?
It's not at all. And I realize that, there's a younger generation that may really get into it, but it's not the storyline that I fell in love with. Therefore, it's not. So call it something different.
Right. So
I mean, if you want to have the same premise, you want to use the same house, wonderful, great, but you're going to have to
So with this one, with The Crow, I didn't really get to read the synopsis of it or what they were going on, how they were going with it, but it sounds like these guys departed because of the whole, exactly kind of what you're doing. I'm sure they're big, huge fans, and they had a direction, they had an idea of how they were going to portray this and write this, and there was some creative differences and financial differences, so they are now going to leave the project. And now I guess the Sony, who was the production company that is there was creative differences with Davis Films, the production company that is backing the project and owns the comic book film rights. So now Sony is leaving that so is Jason Momoa, and the director, I believe, has said. So this is pretty huge, man. There is some that's 3 major things leaving. So it's just back to the drawing board now, I guess. So that's that one. And thanks, babe, for jumping in here and helping me with that. So she's one of those people that if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of a thing. You don't need to reboot everything, right? We don't need a new origin story for every single thing. I'm there with you. How many times have they rebooted Spider-Man, right? And Batman. Let's just come on, guys. We already if you're a fan of the Crow, if you're a fan of all these other ones or Charmed or whatever, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Let's see what else we got. So here's another cool one. So I guess a few weeks ago, Stephen Amell shook the whole collective DC TV fandom, and he revealed that the next Arrowverse crossover will feature the first live-action appearance of Batwoman. That's huge. We finally get a Bat family character in the Arrowverse. They did, they kind of hinted that Bruce Wayne is in this timeline, but we don't know if he's Batman. But I really hope that it's not going to be like some different reality or some one of the multiverse, kind of like they did with the Supergirl, and she's from a different multiverse. I really hope that she is actually this Batwoman is a part of his world. This is actually kind of cool, and I really hope. Let's kind of read this. They just kind of talk about how the character and where she's, where her start and kind of things like that, and they talk about the crossovers and things of that nature. I don't think they exactly give us anything definite and definitive, but we will possibly be getting a Batwoman in the Arrowverse, which is kind of cool. I hope that they don't screw that up, but they've done really well. Their iterations of different characters have been really, really well and really well received, I should say. So let's go ahead and move on. That's actually a cool story there. I am intrigued in seeing that because I have actually, watched Arrow kind of almost every episode there. So let's see what else we got going on, guys. All right, this one looks really, really cool, actually. So this one says it's official, but when I read the article, it doesn't seem like it's too official, but it really could be leaning towards that official. I guess if you really want to delve deep, whatever, I guess it can be official. But it looks like they have found, like McFarlane has found his star for the next Spawn movie. And he says that in the entire time that he was writing the script, he had one person in mind, and it was Jamie Foxx. And he said that 5 years ago, Jamie Foxx came to him into the studio, and they talked about it and how he wanted to play Spawn. And as he was writing the script, the entire time he thought of he plugged in one person, and it was Jamie Foxx. Every single time that he went back to writing the script. So I guess this is what it sounds like to me. He says that he went back to Jamie Foxx and he said, let's talk about you working on Spawn, and Jamie Foxx said, let's do it. So it could be official. I'm not sure if they officially drawn up a contract or anything like that yet. I don't know if they've officially came out and stated that he is going to be Spawn, but it sounds like McFarlane wanted him from the very get-go, and it looks like Jamie Foxx wanted to play Spawn from the very get too. So I don't know how well this is going to be. I don't know if he's going to do very well in this. I really hope that he will, and I'm intrigued by this, and maybe I'll watch this one. But I just really hope that it's going to do well, better than the first movie. So let's just hope that this one does really good, and they do a whole lot better with this one. So I think this is going to be it for the comic book pop culture news. Actually, last week I was working the Phoenix Comic Fest in the talent relations department, and I had to escort many different creators and artists and writers to their panels. And there was one panel that I escorted Greg Capullo to, and it was the Todd McFarlane Greg Capullo panel, right? And I wish I had a little bit more time to spend in that panel, but I had to get away and I had to go escort somebody else to their panel. But yeah, I wish I had some time to stop and ask a question myself. And the question that I would have asked was, who is playing Spawn and gotten a definitive answer, and I wish I would have thought about that then. But my mind was just work, and get these people out and get these people going and set up and all that good stuff, and then move on to the next. But I do want to say thank you guys to all the people who worked in the Phoenix Comic Fest. It was fun. It was really a well-oiled machine. Our department was really well. We meshed pretty good. We got everybody in and out of their panels really good, and we took care of everybody. Everybody was good, awesome. They all the creators actually commented on how good this year was running, and how smooth it was. It was a whole lot smoother than past years, they had said. And they actually said that in the last few years that they did not see anybody from our department, maybe but once or twice the entire weekend. And this time they said, well, you guys have been here multiple times a day, and you guys helped us out so much. And we are appreciative of you guys. So that was really awesome to hear each and every one of them say that, and I'm grateful to all of them. I do want to give a shout out to some of the other creators there, and how awesome they were, and they were pretty cool. They were all really down to earth, and they were really cool to work with, and it was awesome. I'm glad that I got to do something like that. And so I hope everybody comes back next year. Next year they're changing the name from Phoenix Comic Fest to Phoenix Fan Fusion 2019. So let's I hope you guys all go out and buy some tickets to that one, and hopefully we will have some pretty cool guests. And it was fun. It was a good time, and it was exciting. So I'm grateful for everybody that was there. I'm grateful for all of the managers and all of the directors of the many different departments, and I'm grateful to the director of the entire show. So let's end this one with some positivity, and let's put some positive vibes out there into the world. So this is going to be another episode of MCDC Podcast, and this is Joey Galvez. Hopefully next week we will, or so, whenever we can talk to Bill, he will be back on with us. Hopefully he can get well really fast and take care of himself after his little accident, and everything will be good to go. So let's get this going. So I will see you guys later next time.